Guilty
Guilty balls.
balls. Yeah.
I think I was a little bit ahead of you today. A little bit
Oh
ahead.
man.
I'm not sure. I can't decide where to set my laptop. Like, set it on my keyboard, set it on my lap, put it here where it's way farther away. I guess I could lean forward. I don't
There
know.
you go. It looks serious there.
Right. And so yeah. Hey, listeners, welcome back to the Kilted Balls podcast. Ball Buster here.
With the Dragon Chair. Hello, everyone.
We're happy to see y'all, or maybe not see y'all. We're happy that you get to see us. And Kilted just mentioned as soon as we got on, I got my yearly haircut. So it's actually not yearly, but close enough. Close enough. So Cal and I went in there. We had a good time. It was fun. He's like, I love
Oh,
the
that's
barber.
awesome.
I'm like, good. Yeah, because I'm sure they like our money too. So
Exactly. I
but
used to be
yeah,
every 3 weeker. I bumped it back to once a month. So
yeah, I easily go every, couple months, 3 months
hmm
when it starts annoying me, right? Yeah, you can see from last week to this week. It's looking like it's whiter though.
It
Maybe it's
is
just
looking a little
camera.
wider.
Maybe it's just camera.
You look like Nate there. Not our Nate, but the
No.
Nate
Oh,
from
Nate the Great.
Nate the Great.
Yeah, I look like Nate the Great. Yes, yes. I was thinking there were two things I wanted to talk about today,
hmm
and I cannot remember one of them. And I'm like, you know what? If it's meant to be, you'll think of it during
Oh,
the
nice.
episode. The other thing I want to
Nope.
think about. But I noticed this on my desk as I sat down, and so I thought people would find this interesting. Listeners, I don't know if you will, but remember I mentioned last week about the Chive crew?
Oh,
So
awesome.
these are the pins they sent us as
Nice.
part of the Chive crew, and they sent a nice little note letter, Chive crew bag, right?
Awesome.
And then I think this is from them too. Oh no, this is from somebody else. This is for my birthday.
Ah, that is awesome. Nice one.
I brought you up in class this week like twice, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Awesome.
not by name, right? Like I don't
Oh,
bring up Kilted
that's
by
all
name,
right.
that'd be wrong. Um, but I think listeners, you'll appreciate this.
No.
So Kilton and I have
Sorry,
had
Molly
our
Beans.
no, you're fine. Kilton and I have
Molly
had
Beans
our
go crazy.
philosophical discussions forever, right? Since we were in seventh grade and we argued about whether my nephews and nieces were cuter than his sister. We've been
Okay,
arguing,
okay.
right?
That
You
makes
and I've been,
sense.
we've argued about philosophical stuff forever. So, one of the things that we've been talking about recently, and listeners, you might find this useful, you may not. It's a pet peeve of mine. So every time I'm teaching or talking to people and this comes up, and I forcefully bring it up. So it's
Okay.
like purposely done. But we'll be talking about something. So like in this week, I'm talking about, how we know what we know about like atoms and stuff, right?
hmm
And that's kind of interesting stuff. But so I talk about atomic theory, and I'm like, ooh, let's fix something that you were taught wrong all of these years. And so one
Nice.
of the things that everybody is taught incorrectly, and I shouldn't say that. Everybody is taught it correctly. Nobody understands it correctly, including the teachers. And
Okay.
I'm not talking about like just normal, everyday middle school teachers, high school teachers. I'm talking about professors in science at your best universities. Everybody F's this up, right? And it's like one of my things because I'm like, how can even our smartest people in academia F this up? Right?
I'm glad we have the inside track that you know it. So
Right.
this is
Then I know it.
exciting.
So let me help you all. So I ask them, when people are talking about things like theories, everybody's taught the same thing forever. And I go, and you've all been not taught it wrong, but nobody understands it correctly. So y'all F it up. I go, what were you taught about like laws and theories? And can you go back in your brain and remember what you were taught about laws back in the day?
KP? Not
Yeah,
really.
sure. KP. Yeah, Pulowski. Woo. Yeah, Pulowski and Pettibone and Macklem. Remember those guys? Do you
Mhm.
remember what they taught us about laws?
I do not remember specifically about laws
Yeah.
and theories.
They always taught us that laws are proven, right?
Okay.
Like they say, laws are proven, and they're like, and theories aren't necessarily proven. And like I had a student like this week, I'm like, so tell me what's your feels? And they're like, well, like theories are kind of like guesses and stuff. And I'm like, right. And but laws are proven, and they're like, yeah. And I'm like,
I can back that up.
yeah. And I'm like, I remember having a teacher once be like, theories are like the start, and as you do experiments and you do all stuff, like one day it'll grow up and be a law. And it's not laws like human laws. These are like things that don't change, and they're like real.
Mm-hmm.
Like, fuck that. That's total bullshit. I'm like, like literally when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. Like you're spouting something off that was from Google and from your textbook and from before your textbook, Encyclopedia Britannica, and you never thought for a second what the words meant. So you
Yeah.
spout this nonsense, not understanding the words. So it is totally 100% to say laws are proven and theories are not proven. That is true. The problem is they don't understand what proven means.
Okay.
And so they think they know what proven means, and they go, yeah, it's when you do like lots of experiments or you do this or that. I'm like, no, that's when you're trying to like prove somebody innocent or guilty in court. I'm like, that has nothing to do with science. I'm like, you know what proven means. You're just not applying it in your brain, and everybody thinks you know what it means. And all of your teachers, somebody at some point in their life thought they knew what it meant. And their teachers before them and their teachers before them, and none of you fucking know what proven means, but you all know it. And so we assume you know it, but you're not connecting the dots. Look at that little cute guy. Hi, Momo.
Everybody. Hi. Said hi.
So proving, when you prove something, all of our listeners will remember is from geometry class.
Yes, doing proofs.
You do proofs, right? You prove triangle ABC is congruent to triangle BCD. And you're like, yeah, it's because BC is congruent to BC by the definition of identity or the identity property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're just like, ABC is congruent to DBC by vertical angles theorem and blah, 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 blah. That's proving something. So when they say a law is proven, it meant it went through the proof process. That you did that process to it, and thus it's proven. That's what it means. Like it went through that.
So then it's a law.
Then it's a law. So when you put it through that process, then it becomes a law when you've proved it. Like on the Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon is always doing all of that math on the boards, he's trying to prove stuff.
Yes, that makes sense.
Because it's math.
Mm-hmm. Math doesn't lie.
So that's proving things, which means laws. Stick with me here, listeners. That means laws are math.
Yes, that makes sense.
Theories are not proven, meaning theories are not math. As like don't grow up to be one or the other. One is math, one is not math. Right? Like Newton's second law is F equals ma. The ideal gas law is PV equals nRT. Charles's law is V over T equals K. Boyle's law is PV equals K. Coulomb's law is Q1 times Q2 over radius squared. They're math. They're math formulas that you proved were correct using the process of doing a proof. Theories are things like atomic theory, where we say
Mhm.
all matter is made out of atoms. Okay, right? It's you don't prove it, it's words. It's
Mhm.
like kinetic molecular theory, where we say all molecules or all atoms are moving, and gases
Mhm.
move randomly, and they fill the space that they're in. And their temperature is their kinetic energy. Like it's all words.
Mhm.
It's not a thing you prove because it's words. They're big, they're bulky, they're unwieldy. They change all the time because words change all the
Yep.
time. Laws are math. Laws are not like true or false. They're just math. The ideal gas law, one of the ones I just said, is obviously false. Like there's no ideal gas. Like like the name itself lets you know it's not real. It's just a really, really useful mathematical equation
I
to figure
was gonna
shit
say that.
out.
Then how does it work then?
It works
Mhm.
pretty dang well. It's not
It's just
perfect.
named. It's just named badly.
It's because an ideal gas, you can get gases that are close to ideal. Really, really hot hydrogen gas, really hot helium gas. Those are really close to ideal. Water vapor from your like in the air is a piss poor ideal gas. Piss poor. It's not even close to ideal, right? But we'll use the ideal gas law because it's helpful, right? It gives us an
Okay.
idea, right? But it's
So
not
steam is
necessarily
not
true.
ideal,
Oh my gosh, no.
even
Not
if
an
you're in
ideal
Cleveland.
gas. Even in Cleveland and you've steamered it away, it's not ideal,
Oh man.
right? But kinetic molecular theory is
Awesome.
true. And theories can have math in them. Like the atomic theory has lots of mathematical formulas. But anyway, you come up during this
Okay.
because I talk about there's the law of universal gravitation, which
Mhm.
is math. And then there's the theory of gravity, which is not math. And I go, so you've got two of those. And I bring up the fact that I have a buddy once who was like, I'm pretty sure gravity only exists because I believe it exists. And I said, that would be true, except gravity existed before you existed. Like, like humans have been around that long. So, and things still fell. Like it was still a thing.
In theory.
So in theory, yeah,
They
yeah.
have them improving.
This is not at all what I was going to talk about. I'm just showing that you came up in conversation
Awesome.
twice.
I don't remember saying that, but if you say it, one of us said it.
You read a
So
book. No, it was a book about how your beliefs define your reality.
okay.
And so you're like gravity, like maybe the reason we fall is because we believe we're going to fall. And I was like, I can make you a vegetable and you'll still fall.
Mhm.
And then you were like, well, that's because you believe it. I'm like, I'm like, shit fell before we existed. It doesn't have
Okay.
anything to do with belief.
My reasoning was profound back then.
Oh my gosh, it was so profound. Like, if you were high on pot, everybody would have believed you,
Yeah,
right? This
I
sounds
was.
like
I
something a
wasn't.
pothead
I
would
wasn't.
say.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are not. No,
Well,
we
maybe
had
there's still
profound
plenty in my
discussions.
system, so
Secondhand,
that's
all
neither
the time, just
here
pumping
nor
in.
there. We spend
Speaking
that
of
many
things by my
years.
desk,
Awesome. Yeah, I was asking about that today.
it's right
So I
here.
wasn't sure if you had opened it. Yeah, because
I'm scared
I
to
was
open
gonna
it.
I was gonna open some of my other ones because I do need to start listing those. I have some other things. Brian
I'm
has
just
his
scared to open it.
Halloween V-Friend pin and
Right
card
now,
in
I can
there.
imagine it's a bat.
Once it's open, yeah,
One,
Schrodinger right there.
this is Schrodinger. Right now, it's a bat, and it's not a bat. We're
Mhm.
very sciencey today.
It's awesome. There was something I was gonna say. Oh, it wasn't profound. I get it. I get an email, and it's like your shipment is on its way, and it's from a place I haven't ordered from in a while. from the store Horseman, which I love their stuff. Their stuff is awesome. But I'm like, what did I order? So I click it, and it was an order that I placed. It was a pre-order apparently, November 21. So they're sending it to me.
Oh yeah, well my Mattel order shipped, and I'm super excited to show it when it comes in.
I did see that my Mattel order shipped too. I'm really
Mhm.
excited about that.
I'm
Speaking
super
of,
excited.
I do have one of my Skeletors right here next to me.
Oh, nice. I think that's beautiful. So I don't know why this popped into my head recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember if it was in the morning or if it was at night, but it has to do with Frozen. So I think so people who like know me or are close to me know that I tend to have soundtracks. Like I have music playing in my head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody was like, "Oh, what are you guys listening to recently?" And I was like, "Oh, I've been listening to this, and Cal and I listened to this, and so, I was listening to this, and I've had Righteous Brothers playing in my head for the last like 2 days, right?" So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like, there's music always playing, and if you're like, "Really, that doesn't seem right," you can ask people who are around. I'm always singing or whistling random songs, even with the radio on. So like,
Mm-hmm.
some things are just playing in the
That's
background.
true.
Anyway, the troll song from Frozen. So somebody was watching Frozen recently,
Okay.
and when they're like trying to match them up together. You remember
Uh,
that in Frozen?
I've seen Frozen before.
The t-
Mm.
well, anyway,
I do love
there's a
Adina. I love her voice. So I
there's
will
a
say
song
that.
in there where the trolls are singing and they're getting ready to
The
make
Trolls?
Elsa. Yeah,
See, when you say Trolls, I'm thinking the movie Trolls and how
no,
because all those are all music, so that threw
yeah,
me off. Okay, go
yeah.
ahead. So
The
they're
rock
trying to match
trolls
them up.
are hooking up Elsa
And Sven,
and
Sven?
well, Sven's the reindeer, right?
I don't know. I thought he was the guy.
So does Olaf. Olaf
Yeah.
thinks the guy.
Olaf is the snowman. I do know
So you
that.
and Olaf think the same way.
See, you've seen it a couple more times than me.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
but anyway, they were talking about, we're not saying you can change him because people never really change is the line. And I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, that's wrong. People change all the time.
Yeah.
I was like, and especially if somebody goes through trauma, like we know they change and we've seen
Mhm.
them change.
Yeah.
I think it popped into my head, honestly, because my sister was telling me about a guy whose dog like bit his hand and arm so bad that he might have to have it amputated.
Oh
And
wow.
so, yeah, crazy, right? Like he came
Mhm.
home, his dog, 8-year-old dog, snapped and like tore his arm up.
Wow.
And I was like, that's crazy. Like, that's nuts. And they were like, well, sometimes that happens. Sometimes they go crazy. I'm like, well, people sometimes go crazy.
Hmm.
And that's what made me start thinking,
Nobody.
sometimes people can change. And I was like, and if
Yeah.
they can change for the negative, if a person could change and for all the different reasons that they changed negatively, they could also change positively
Hmm.
the same way. And so and I'm like, I've heard people say that so many times. So, people don't really change. They don't really change. I'm like, actually, I think people do really change. I think they grow and they
People have to
change.
want to change. They have to
Well,
want
and
to
even if
though.
they don't want to change, they might change, right?
Yes. That's usually not for the positive though,
It's
in my
often
experience.
not
But
for the positive. I would agree. Forced change. I don't know. I don't know. Does anybody have an example of forced change that
yeah,
was for the positive?
yeah.
Like, I don't
Margie
know.
needs to get down for sure.
It could be like if you went through trauma because your parents were alcoholics or something, and so you change and don't have an alcoholic personality, that would be positive.
Yeah.
If you
But
had
that's not
one,
yeah, I was gonna say that's not something that's necessarily at one stage, then not the other. I mean, I
yeah,
fell far from the tree by choosing not to be an alcoholic,
right, right, for sure,
you
for sure.
know.
But so yeah, so anyway, I was like, I think people can change both ways. I don't know if it's easy,
Mhm.
and that doesn't mean you couldn't change back or whatever, but and then like on the way home today, I was thinking about myself and I was like, you know what? I'm still really similar to the person I was in like high school or whatever. But I tell like kiddos on my team all the time, I'm like, you wouldn't probably recognize me as a high schooler.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, yeah, yeah, probably. I'm like, you have no idea how mean I was. I'm like it is incomprehensible. I go, you guys are like gentle, nice people. I go, I probably injured more people than I lost to during wrestling in high school. I'm like, and I had no compunction and no compassion or
Yeah.
empathy for that. Like it made no difference
Hmm.
to me. If I broke your
Yeah.
arm, I broke your arm. Like I didn't care.
Yeah.
Like it literally wasn't a thing. And I'm like, and now I feel like I would care if I broke somebody's arm.
Okay, I might feel bad.
Like I might feel bad about that. Like I have empathy that I did not have in high school. And you grew up with me. So like
Hmm.
you've seen that change and would
Yeah.
recognize that, right? But don't you think I'm not that same person?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both, I mean, of course, to get this, not that you don't get far in life by not changing, but for everything that both of us have gone through, like we've both changed a lot from when we were younger in our personalities and to be more empathetic towards people. And not that I wasn't even close to as mean as you, but I was, I would look at myself and in my even mid 20s, I was a ne'er-do-well. Like, I did what I had to do. I wasn't
Yeah.
afraid of work. I worked hard, but I wasn't
Hmm.
like it hadn't clicked yet. I wasn't on the ball like to like
No,
do more with my life
I
besides,
didn't.
watch sliders and play video games.
Right. I was just gonna say, like, we didn't do work. Like we worked.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in a rural community and we had that work ethic, but it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
our thing. Like
Yeah.
that's not it. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
back to those times, I was like, I was never really work. Like now I work.
Yeah.
Like now I do tons of stuff. And that's what I'm like, I'm a different person now than I was then.
Yeah.
But I think and I always think it's funny because people do things like, man, you have amazing patience. Like it's just like you seem to be able to handle everything because you have like this well of patience. I'm like, man, if you'd seen me when I was 20, like there was no chill. Like that didn't exist. I had zero patience for tomfoolery, like none of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, now I'm like super chill, right? So I'm like,
Yeah.
clearly I've changed over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I think people forget that when they say that they don't really change. I'm like, no, they really do change. People
Yeah.
people really do change,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that was the one big thing that I was thinking of. I don't know, it just kept rattling around in my mind. I'm like, I want to talk about that. But there
Yeah.
were two things, and I even had the title for the episode, people. It was like change
Really?
and yeah, it was like change and persistence or change and something. I can't remember what it was.
See,
I'm so
speaking of change,
sad.
I have a funny story while you're thinking about it. So I
Please
sold
tell me.
vacuums for a while, sold Kirby
Yes.
vacuums, and that was a rough spot in my life. But
I thought it was a great
just
time
like
for you.
the disconnect, I was at someone's house and I was doing all their carpets and stuff, but the wife wasn't there. The husband and the kids were there. And the
Hmm.
husband kept saying that the wife doesn't like change. And I was thinking in my mind, like, you're not using cash. Like, you pay with a card or I can finance you. Like, this has nothing to do with change. Like, I'll round it. Like every time he said it, that's what's going on in my head. And that's just one of those things like afterwards, I'm just like, how dumb am I? Like at that, even that day, I realized, like, oh yeah, like obviously he was not talking about change, but it's just one of those things that like I'll never forget. So
No,
it was
that is
hilarious.
amazing.
It
That
was
is
not a
amazing.
sale if you were actually wondering.
So here's a question for you. This is going to be in two separate segments, okay? when you were doing Kirby vacuums
Mhm.
or when you were selling cars or any of those things, would you like use numbers and stuff when you're talking to the customers? Like, would you be like, here's the price, here's the discount, here's how much like a normal vacuum costs, here's this. You know what I'm
Mhm.
talking about?
Yeah.
Was that like a thing?
Mhm.
I
Yes.
was telling I was telling a group of people today, I was asking them to guess a number. I think like, how much stuff is in this room or whatever.
Yeah.
And like nobody would guess. And finally somebody, I'm like, it's like the guessing game, like when you see a ball of stuff. And they're like, I guess like 10 to 1,000, 10 with 1,000 zeros, 1 to 1,000 zeros. I'm
Mhm.
like, really? And they're like, yeah. And so I went to every person in the room. I'm like, do you think they're right? Or like it's less than that or more? And I asked every person, right? I'm like,
Mhm.
where do you feel you are with this? And they all told me. I'm like, you're all on crack. I'm like, you guys are so high right now. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, you might as well have said infinity. Like 1,000 zeros is behind comprehension. That's
I mean, if they're
more.
counting air molecules in there and atoms, I mean, they
If
could be
you
close.
counted all the atoms in the universe,
Oh,
it
it's not
wouldn't
that many.
approach that number. It wouldn't even be in the realm of that
Yeah.
number.
That's
That number
that.
might as well be infinity.
It's funny because something happened just recently, and Oliver said something about, I forget if he said, I think he said 1 billion,
Yeah.
and I was like, Ollie, like you, and I, oh, it was almost the same thing. I was like, you might as well just say infinity because you can't even comprehend 1 billion. I'm like, you can't
No.
even comprehend 1 million.
The 6 year
Like,
old today I heard telling another kid, yeah, my dad has a couple $1 billion.
mm-hmm. Well,
I
that's
looked at
true.
him, I'm like, really? I do? And he's like, yeah, you've got billions. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And the other kid, there's another kid there, and he was like, that's more than 1 million. He's like, yeah. He goes, I have 1 million. I was like, what?
See, that makes sense. He's got that treasure chest.
He's got the treasure chest. Yeah, I threatened to take it away, not take it away, but I was like, he was throwing stuff at like a party he was at, like a ball against a window.
Hmm.
And like we're like, bro, don't do that. We're like, you know what would happen if that broke? You'd have to pay for it. And he's like, well, you'd give me the money. And we're like, no, we'd take it out of your treasure chest.
Hmm.
And that's how you'd pay for it. That's the penalty. What? No, we're like, yeah, you break it, you
Hmm.
buy it. So
Yeah,
you'd have to tap into whatever money you have. So
it's
he
awesome.
was like, what?
So
But
he stopped.
yeah, well, hopefully he did. I was like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. We'll see. He's not a great listener about stuff like that. So yeah, man, I wish I could remember the other thing. I
Still
think I
can't
was
remember the
thinking
second
about
thing.
all of our friends, but I don't remember what it turned into. But it was deep, people. It was deep and it would have been amazing. And it was not anything we'd
Oh,
ever talked about before. Because I was like, oh my
oh, even
gosh.
better.
I'm like, we've never talked about stuff like this, and we've never talked about the change thing. I'm like, so this could be really
Hmm.
interesting, right? Mm.
Well, next week you might have to put in your phone. So she's going, we are gone a lot today. She's going crazy right now. Well, she was out all night last night.
Well, and I was repeating the two things to me like all day so I wouldn't forget. And then on the way home, I was like, I forgot. I forgot. I'm like, what was it? What were we going to talk
Well,
about?
it's gonna have to be next week. Hopefully you remember.
It was going to be the title. And I'm going to have to think of a new title like Change, Change, Change. Oh,
Hmm.
man. Oh, man.
That's
I don't know what it
hilarious.
was about.
I
I
was
don't know what
thinking
it
there
was
was
about.
something else too, but I don't remember. I'm excited for this month. We got it's a busy, busy month and lots of fun stuff going on
Yeah, you
over
do.
here. So yeah.
Well, my busy time is slowly dwindling down to not busy. So that's
Hmm.
exciting,
Yeah.
right? That'll be fun. I think I like the idea of not being busy.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So I told everybody that I got a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you didn't know, I got
You
a
didn't
truck.
you didn't tell everybody about your other fun thing.
I was just gonna say, did I tell you about the other fun thing? I think I
You
did,
told
right?
me. Yeah, you told me.
Yeah. So this is one of those interesting things where it's something like I've wanted for a while, and it's kind of like the truck where it's been one of those things that I keep saying, oh, I need this, but I don't know if I should get one or whatever. And we've talked about the other thing the same amount of time because we're like, we could do a lot of stuff with that, blah, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah. And both the truck and this fell into my lap, but we got a quad. So
It's exciting.
yeah,
Are you
it's
gonna
super
put a
weird
track
truck.
at your house? That's the cool thing.
Yeah, so like
For
the
the little
neighbor
guy.
always rides his like through the woods, and so I rode mine through his woods. But we'll take it up north and
Yeah, so
take it
you
on
can
the
take it up
tracks up
north.
there.
That's
But it was
awesome.
just, it kind of fell in our lap, and so we brought it home and drove it around and did stuff. But I'm like, man, I love the universe
It's awesome. That's super
taking
awesome.
care of me. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's awesome. So yeah, it came with a big old trailer, and each day I've been itching to go use it because it's been sunny out. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, ooh, and I haven't because I've been busy doing other stuff because it's busy season. But I keep like, maybe, maybe.
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it was cool. I was telling everyone about it here.
were
So they
you?
were
I'm so
excited.
excited for you to ride on it. It's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I was worried because I like told my wife, I'm like, I can't remember the last time I actually drove a quad. I'm like, it might have been high school, college, last time I drove a
Mm-hmm.
quad. And I was like all worried. Like, I'm like, well, I remember how to shift it. Well, I remember how to do all that.
That's
Oh yeah,
awesome.
baby, it's automatic. It's you
Just
just
came right back. Oh,
you just
yours is automatic. Oh.
shift it into drive, use the thumb
That's a
gas, and you're
old
good to go.
man. Wow. So all of a sudden it's not as fun. It doesn't have any mud flaps on it.
Oh
It's got
man, I
like
was
street
spitting up
tires.
mud. I was spitting up mud on it for sure. We're gonna have a great freaking time with that. It'll be a good time. So, listeners, you want to come visit? I'll take you for a ride on my quad. It'll be a short ride, not big of a yard, but
Up and down the driveway.
of another drive. Zip, zip, done. And there's your ride. That'll be fun.
Yeah,
Man,
that's super
people,
awesome.
I'm so disappointed. I can't remember what I was going to talk about. I'm like, was it patience? Was it privacy? I feel like it started with a P.
Hmm.
Persistence,
Hmm.
possibilities, penises, pinochle.
It's got to be one of those.
It's gotta be. It's gotta be.
Hmm.
I don't know why I think it was a P. It probably wasn't a P, and that's probably why I'm confused,
That's
right?
what's throwing you off. Yeah.
That's probably what's from here. Because it's happened before where I'm like, oh, I've got to remember this. I know it started with a T or something. And then I'm like, dang it, it was pterodactyl. Starts with a freaking T.
Exactly.
And I'm like,
Which
dang
is
it.
still a great book. Is that book at your house?
Yeah, we
Is
have
for
that book.
pterodactyl?
Yes, we have that book. It's
I
awesome.
thought so. I love that book.
Oh my gosh, that's a great book. I've read it a few times, but not today. I'm so sad I can't remember people. You're going to have
Well,
to
that
just
means,
tune in to the next
yeah.
episode. That's what's going to have to happen.
Yep. So we got to learn how to do that. Like we're pitching for the next episode. Like tune in
That's
next
exactly right.
time.
Tune in next time so
Ball
you
has
can
a
get the
week to
next
remember
episode.
what he was excited to talk about.
It would have been
Although I think
amazing.
this episode was good. This episode is really good. We talked about a lot of great stuff.
Well, and I was thinking about our buddies from D&D. Like one of
Mm-hmm.
them's going through a lot of changes. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if they had gone through changes in the last 15 years and that, helped facilitate those changes, right? Like sometimes if you and your spouse grow at different rates, that can cause a lot of friction, right?
Mm-hmm.
As you well know.
Well, he did make he had made comments that were like something where he could have seen in the relationship that when it happened, like that's when things he said started going bad that he noticed. So,
Speaking of
you
that,
know.
that's triggering a memory because one of the things, I don't remember what I was going to talk about, right? So we'll have to see if we can figure it out. But one of them, one of the stories I was going to tell in relation to what I was going to talk about. So see if
Mhm.
you can connect the dots to what I was going to talk
Okay.
about. Was I was hearing from a coach once, right? Like at an in-service training thing, and he was
Yeah.
talking about different things that we need to like pay attention to and stuff.
Mhm.
And he was talking about he had gotten divorced, right?
Yeah.
Priorities. That's what it was, people.
Priorities.
It was
Ooh.
priorities. Priorities. Yes.
So next week we're talking about priorities.
Next week, we're talking
Awesome.
about priorities. It was changes in priorities because he was talking about, he was like a fantastic, like an amazing coach, and he cared about the kids he coached super much, right? He was like Ted
Mhm.
Lasso, right?
Yeah.
And he cared about them so much, and he got divorced. And he's like, I often think to myself, what if I had spent just a fraction of my time on my relationship with my wife that I was spending on coaching? Like, what if I had prioritized that? Like, how crazy would that have been? He goes, because I was using my entire soul into that. And the reason I thought about this, and now it's all tying in together with D&D and
Mhm.
why these all click, is because you made the comment, I think it was last week or to somebody, they're like, you were always late growing up, right?
Mhm.
And I used to say this and nobody would listen to me because big words in high school boys and college boys, right? But
Mhm.
I'm like, no, it was about priorities. I didn't
Mhm.
prioritize meeting people at
You always said
IGA,
that. Mhm.
right? I go, I didn't, that wasn't a priority. I tell people now stuff like people are like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have time. I'm like, no, you're not prioritizing that thing. You
Yes.
have time. You're choosing not to use your time that way. And so my whole thing for next episode, this is our lead in, people, is like how you decide your priorities and are you being intentional with those decisions? Because
Yeah.
sometimes you'll find that whatever you are doing is not prioritizing what you actually want,
Yes.
right? And I'm like, we can have a whole big conversation about that.
Oh,
Clearly
I'm
not
excited.
today. Clearly not today.
It is gonna be awesome.
Right? Right. So next time on the Kilted Balls podcast, priorities,
Mhm.
people, think about it, message us, comment us, tweet or X us about it. We'll be hitting that big next week. So give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, heck yeah. Until then, this is Ballbuster signing off.
Built the Dragon Jerry, love you all.